Welcome back. It's day 2 of getting Ruby back to work. I'm glad you're here. We're going to do something that's going to be more interesting for her and more fun for you than watching her go round and round in circles. I am glad you're here. As I mentioned when I was working her on Monday, there was a very distinct lack of paying attention right there. She was absolutely not asking me permission to check out what's going on over there. So that's what we're going to be working on, is her looking to me for her clues on what she needs to be doing at any given time. All of this, we're going to work on that. Our first exercise is getting Ruby to stand still and keep her attention on me. The objective is that if she moves away from where I've placed her, or if she's not paying complete attention to me, I will shake the lead rope until I get her attention. Throughout the course of the activity, she makes no effort whatsoever to move. However, she was looking around, thinking about what else was going on around her, which is not necessarily a bad thing or a thing that's not allowed. It's just that when I call her attention back to me, I want her to be paying attention to me and not have to go into such great depths to get her attention and get her focus back on me. My halter and lead rope setup is probably not the best for this. What might work a little bit better would be a rope halter, but because I've never been able to tie them successfully, I don't have one available to use. We spent about 4 minutes on this, which was probably 2 minutes longer than she needed because she stood still and wasn't trying to do anything other than waiting for me to tell her what to do. A good first start. Finishing up that activity, I took a little bit of time to tell her she did a good job. The next activity we worked on was just basic leading and stopping. The goal and the objective of this activity is making sure she's paying enough attention to me so that she's keeping the same pace I'm keeping and that she stops when I stop. With this activity, I have got my lunge whip in addition to the halter and the lead rope. And what I do if she doesn't stop when I stop, I will use the handle end of my whip to very gently encourage her to back up and then move forward from there so that she's really paying attention to what I am doing as we move along. I like to walk at her shoulder. I don't want her too far behind me, and I certainly don't want her in front of me to where if she's behind me, I'm pulling her along, or if she's in front of me, she's pulling me along. And I'll do this exercise at both the walk and the trot. I also mix it up so that she doesn't automatically assume that we are doing one particular thing right after something happens. Meaning, if I stop, she will figure it out, okay, we're gonna go forward and start moving off without my permission. The next activity Ruby and I are gonna work on is her stretching. You may have heard this activity called carrot stretches, and you may do this prior to you actually riding. I don't use carrots in this activity because Ruby is very food motivated, and while she will listen and turn her head and reach for the carrots, she's really more concerned about the carrot than she is me. So it was really important for me to use this exercise without any kind of food motivation, but instead using the lead rope, practicing what I'm doing with my hands to ask her to give and ask her to turn toward me, and also be fair to her and release when she gives me what I ask of her. Now, one thing that you'll notice that she's doing, because she is so very, very smart, is that instead of giving, she's backing up in response to the pressure. But that's not what we are asking, or I'm asking her to do. I'm asking her to keep her feet still and just turn around and give to that pressure toward her neck. And so that's one of the things that I work on a bit here, is to getting her to give without moving her feet. What I tried to do with the lunge line was trying to use it as I would a crop if I were riding, and trying to use it to keep her from moving backwards, and that didn't work. But let that be a lesson to you when you're trying to do something with your horse. There's nothing wrong with you evaluating the tools you have and experimenting and trying to figure out what works. I'm being careful in what I'm asking her to do, and when she gave originally, I shortened my reins and tried it again, and you'll see that she is, instead of giving, she's moving her feet to give to the pressure, and I just positioned her back where I wanted her and asked for a little bit until she gave me what I was asking for. And of course, you might notice here, she's not paying attention to me, and I had to ask her to get her attention to move her around. So let's reposition, let's try on the other side, or let's work on the other side so she doesn't get bored, because really this is pretty basic for her. She's just having to work on muscle development and respecting me. This again is another exercise that it's really good to watch what's happening, because as big as she is, when you're standing right there beside her, her movement looks a lot bigger than what it really is, and she's really not giving an awful lot here. She's given a little bit more and given a little bit more. I shortened my lead rope, but then she uses her hind end, stepping across, to help her get out of doing what I'm asking her to do, just because it's easy muscularly. But that is something that will help her in the next exercise we're going to do. So I reposition her and we try again. It's much better. And then we're done. The next activity Ruby and I are going to be working on is getting her to cross over her legs, whether that's the front feet or the back feet, to move away from the pressure. And so what I'm doing here, as you can tell, I'm asking her to move away from the pressure, moving her hind end. And you can see here where this activity was similar to what she was doing when I was just trying to get her to flex, in that she responded to my pulling her head around and giving her pressure on her hind end by moving away from the pressure. And so she's stepping across. And because she was getting it, we stopped. We're going to do the same thing, trying to work her front end. This was a little bit more challenging, only because I was needing to learn how to effectively communicate with her what I wanted. She's not paying any attention, is not at all concerned about the lead rope, swinging, tapping her shoulder. She stands. One thing that was really positive about what she just did was she turned and walked toward me, which meant she was paying attention to what I was asking of her. So now I've gotten the lunging whip, which is probably too much pressure. I probably need to go get my carriage whip for the next time so that I have something that is not quite as long, because she just doesn't need all of that. A simple tap probably would get her to move her shoulders the way that I want her to. What I found is challenging with this, instead of crossing over, she just stepped away. Notice what happens. Instead of crossing over with her right, she just stepped away with her left front. There's a crossover. Here I'm trying to position myself so that when I ask her to do what I need her to do, it's clear, and I'm setting her up for the most success she can have. But I don't want to belabor this, and I'm going to come back to it to see how I can make sure that I'm asking her to step over better. That was good. And we'll practice this again in the future. Be sure when you're working your horse that you don't belabor the point, especially when you're introducing a new concept or you're doing something new with them. I'd like to use what you're going to see Ruby do momentarily with her right rear as an example of the benefits of recording your horse while you're working with her. or him. Notice her right rear as she steps over and she lifts it just so slightly. That is something that ties into concerns I've seen of her in the stall, in the pasture, and wondering whether or not it's time for there to be some additional attention to her hind end with regard to arthritis or hocks or other issues. It may be nothing more than an overprotective owner, but it's a good tool to just assess the health of your horse as well as their training progress. Anyone who works with horses, if they're honest, would admit the tendency to do just a little bit more, or let's just do that one more time when it looks like the horse is getting it. It's much better to stop sooner rather than later and then just come back to it and work it again at another time, so that you're not making what is an interesting endeavor for your horse another boring exercise that results in making your horse a little bit more sour. I hope you've enjoyed these exercises, and I'll revisit them again in the future, but before then, is there any exercise you've seen that you would like for me to try to demonstrate with Ruby in these activities? We'll see how things progress, and I look forward to the day where I feel like she's ready for me to get back on her back and enjoy riding her again. Thanks for joining me. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so you can get notified when those Monday morning videos come out. And if you got value out of this, please, by all means, give us a big thumbs up so we know that we're going down the right track. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.